is like, let's say you have the marker here. You can rotate the marker, and guess what that is? That's change. I can rotate the marker again, that's change. Rotate the marker again, that's change. But transformation, something different, is when you take that same marker, right, and you look at it, and you actually transform that into a watch. Does that make a difference to you guys? True transformation is, how do I take this and transform this into this? And that does not happen unless you're willing to measure it consistently.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years, and our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
It comes down to everyone. I want you to think about what brings about change. So as we go into this 90-day challenge, what brings about change? I want you to think about that. What do you guys think? What's one big thing that brings about change? Action. Or what else? Pain. Yeah, I agree. Clarity. Anger. Yep. And so that's just something that, Mark, doesn't work, that we all look at, because that's part of me, and you guys are right. So as I looked at mine, I'm going to take you guys through part of that, and I'll show you mine. I looked at what are the facts, what are the feelings behind that, and every time I finally make a change, I finally get pissed off enough to change it. But the problem with that is what happens after the change decision right here. They don't truly sustain it. So the challenge is they have a desire for change, but there's never an ultimate transformation. And so what happens? We go off here, and people want to make the change, but then what happens? Life comes in, they go right back to where they were. Because they go, there's no true transformation, it's simply a change. And so that's kind of what's important to look at as we understand as an organization here going forward in what we do. And I had that kind of part in that regard. But what's happened is, like, how do I make a change in my life is the one thing that I want to look at going forward that leads to transformation. And there's a key that goes to that that's super important, right? I'll make sure I frame it the right way, but there's two different things that you can kind of see together. But here's what I'm going to have you guys consider, is that you cannot, I'm glad you guys made the right decision here. You cannot transform, I'll write this down. Yeah. Transform, key word right here. What you're not willing to track. What do you think that means?
Well, if you're continuing on and not taking a look at true data about every activity you're doing, you're going based on what you feel about the activities you've done, not instead of the actual data. That's why sometimes our keys are incongruent. We see like 350 dials, but 5 appointments booked, but we know that that person's not booking 1 appointment for 300 dials. So
yes.
I mean, it's hard to. You can't go on feeling.
You're not also going to feel like the reality of the situation, or if there is a pain that would move you. It's like if someone wants to lose weight, let's say, and they are like, oh, I'm just going to eat better and I'm going to walk at night, but they're not going to go on the scale because they just don't want to face the reality. They're like, oh, I feel healthier, but it's like, are you at a different point to start?
100%. That's what I'm looking for here. We live based on feelings, and we don't live in the reality. Happens all day long. Everybody, and I'll talk about a few instances in a minute, and I was talking about this with one of the guys. He actually owns a hotel over here. He's in my warrior group. He's like, oh yeah, where are you at? I'm like, Myrtle Beach, near 501. He goes, oh, I own a hotel right next to you. Like, it's a big time dude. He's from Manhattan. I'm like, I can see your hotel from my office right now. It's the one over there behind Walk My Pottery, the Staber Suites. Pretty nice there. And so he owns hotels all over the place. But long story short, he talks about the biggest frustration he has with his kids and people is they tend to change the rules. So they want to have a change, right? Want to have a change, and things get tough. Something comes up, what do they do? Change the rules. You see this happen a lot of times with government, right? We saw this happen with the slow the curve. Slow the curve, everybody slow the curve, and then what happened? Move the goalposts, right? And so people tend to naturally do this, especially as humans, and there's never true transformation. So they'll change for a little bit, and then what happens? It goes right back to something else. That's why we have 90-day challenges consistently, where a lot of people don't hit them after day 30. And so the difference in kind of looking at, and this is something I was looking at, is like, let's say you have the marker here. You can rotate the marker, and guess what that is? That's change. I can rotate the marker again, that's change. Rotate the marker again, that's change. But transformation, something different, is when you take that same marker, right, and you look at it, and you actually transform that into a watch. Does that make a difference to you guys? True transformation is, how do I take this and transform this into this? And that does not happen unless you're willing to measure it consistently. And that's one thing I was telling Alex about yesterday. I was like, just looking at from a business standpoint right now, is like a lot of people don't know where they're off. Or I'm not seeing what the problem is. How many offers are writing up? How many get accepted? How many dials am I making people to get answered? I had this thing with Ben yesterday. I was listening to Ben. I'm like, man, I have Ben talk to one person. And I'll say, hey, how many calls you made? You say, what, 125? 125 dials and no answers. What are you doing? Well, I'm calling for my Google. Your Google number? Yeah, well, what's your Google number? I don't know, I'm not really sure. I just had the thing that we signed up, did. This is operational part, on us a little bit. And so there's no Google number? Nope. So when people are calling you, what's it say on their call ID? Unknown. Well, who the f will answer an unknown number? With not even a number attached to it? No one, right? And so how many times have been lost? But we're not tracking and looking and analyzing. And you don't know this. That's why it's a big aha for me as a leader. Like, where do you know to be able to make those changes? But if we're not obsessed, right, with tracking here, we're never going to be able to transform anything. Same thing from weight. Same thing from anything in relationships. Same thing for your business. So we're never going to transform what we're willing to track, which is important. And here's the thing. I want you guys to think about this. This is important. That transformation is bigger than change. Here's the crazy part about this. If I don't have the discipline to track my metrics or track my transformation daily, I'm not going to have the discipline to actually make the transformation. It's crazy. Big thing for me too. Every time I don't track my software I don't really make a huge transformation. Every time. So I'm saying again, if I'm not willing to track my transformation every single day, right, I'm not going to have the discipline to make the transformation. Because the discipline to make the transformation starts in the discipline to what? To track. And so that's where the 90-day challenge comes in, which is where I think is a huge thing that's made massive difference for everybody. But more than anything, what you guys led about that sets that up is the power of clarity and the reality of getting that done. I felt so much more powerful last week in going through and digging and really looking at everything from the inside out, what the problems are, what's working, what's not working, and where I want to go. It made a massive difference for me on the back end. And so that's the key part here I want you guys to look at, and that's just something that is kind of really important. Change ultimately ends up staying the same. Change will go up, and then change goes right back to the same. It goes back to the thermostat, right, or that common denominator, and really for you all, what your lowest common denominator is. And we're always going to go back to that unless we're willing to track it. Why? Because when I track this here, it helps me create a new floor. Because once I make a goal out, for me, for example, I'm going to get down to 185. Right, and 195, 196 right now, which is way higher than I want to be. So I'll make sure that's my new goal to get to. And looking at running a race, they have a race in July, August. Where is it?
August 15th.
Okay, maybe it's August 15th. Okay, whatever it is. I look there. There is one that fits in this category, right? For us to be able to do.
74 days.
Okay, perfect. So that's the reality there that we're able to have. And so I track that, look at that daily. Am I on track? Am I off track? Am I on track? It holds me accountable to the timeline at the end. And that's the key part there I want you guys to think about that makes a big, big difference. But if you're not tracking, your change becomes more of the same. What do you think that means? If you're not tracking, your change becomes more of the same.
You're going to see the same results?
Yep, it feels different, but you're not getting any better. It feels different, but you're not getting any better. Same thing here, right? The overall part, like Katie talks about, feelings. And we're not living in reality. Looking at the numbers forces us to live in the reality. Looking at the numbers forces us to live in the reality because as humans, we don't do that. I don't do it if I don't look at the numbers, right? Society's not looking at that. And that's important to look at as a whole. People want to, the whole country right now is doing a lot of shit based on feelings. I said I wouldn't go here, but that's important to think about that. The facts are what matters the most in that regard, if that makes sense. What are you guys hearing from me right there?
I think it's what you said about changing the rules if you lead with feeling. It's the reason addicts can not kick habits so often because they'll, like say like
Yes.
alcoholic, they'll make a rule where it's like, okay, well I'm only going to drink 1 day a week. Well, actually they usually start with I'm not drinking at all. Then it's I'm going to drink 1 day a week. Then it's I'm going to drink only on the weekends. Then it's well if I just drink every other couple of days it's fine. And then like before long they're right on back on where they were every single night. So I mean I was there.
I've done it too, you know. Must be non-negotiable. Anytime I'm willing to negotiate myself with the outcome, game over is done. The change goes right back to the same, and I'm not getting true, ultimate transformation. Now, what's the hardest thing for people to do? Track, which is to really transform. Transform is really hard, but because obviously you got to track it and you got to transform at the same time. And that's just something for us to look at that's very important in this regard. But here's the thing. People do some crazy shit based off feelings. But they aren't willing to look at, if you look at psychology, I'm always tracking psychology. What do people do? What makes them do things? If they looked at numbers in real life, half the time the shit's not even really what they think it is. Myself included. Right? And so that's the important part of making sure we operate in a business like that, because you're in business to make sure you have that with your numbers. And also so you have the power to get through the next 3 months of this thing. Yep. That's one thing that's important to do. And as a leader, you know, this is one of the guys in our group kind of quoted that, is the best thing that a parent can do, right, is to teach your kids or train them to take care of themselves. Right? And my job as a leader here is to teach and train you guys to transform yourself and to really facilitate, right, the leadership leading by example, and obviously to give the tools and the structure around that. But I can't save anybody in that regard, right? The saying that my coach can't save me, I got to do the fucking work. And so it's not until I'm willing to track that daily that I'm going to get true transformation. And it's not until you're willing to track that you're going to get true transformation. Not until society's willing to track they're going to get some true transformation. It's facts.